welcome to Glitter and Chaos. We are your co-hosts. I'm Caitlin Mead, licensed clinical professional counselor and registered play therapist.
And I'm Kaylee Patton-Dieters, licensed clinical marriage and family therapist.
Welcome to today's episode. We're going to talk about the brain being mean to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like our own brains being mean to us.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that everybody has that problem. I know I have that problem quite often, embarrassingly often. And just kind of breaking down and talking about, like, what do you do? What do you do? I know we've talked in previous episodes about imposter syndrome and how that can be your brain being mean to you, but I think this is a different level of our brain being mean to us. This hits on insecurities. This is going to hit on negative cognitions, on mean, like, self-talk.
Just every day. Everyday kind of just your brain being mean to you on everyday kind of things. You're just going along throughout your day. Maybe something doesn't go the way that you thought it would or how you had it coordinated in your brain. And then it's like, gosh, why did I do that? Or, just all of those kind of critical, self-deprecating kind of statements that can go on in your brain because something didn't go the way that you had planned it.
Yeah. I think sometimes, we talk often about, like, people being bullies or whatever. And I think often our brains are probably the worst bully in all reality. I know in my life, even as an adult, I tend to be, like, probably the meanest to myself. And I think sometimes you don't recognize it until you voice it out loud. I know in my situations, I don't necessarily recognize it until I'm talking to my friends about it and I'm saying, well, I think this about myself, and I'll get this look from my friends that are like, what? Like, what the heck? And then you say it out loud and you realize, well, that's really not nice. Like, my brain's really kind of a jerk. Yeah. And so that's what we wanted to hit on today was the brain being a bully.
And how it shows up so, I don't want to say frequently, but sometimes frequently.
Oh,
and it's at different intensities too. Not every day is it going to be that complete cycle or perseveration on that negativity, that self-criticalness of when something doesn't go the way that you think it does, or you did something that was embarrassing, or you were vulnerable and it wasn't potentially received well. It can be just simple things of like, gosh, I stubbed my toe and that was silly. Why didn't I see the table there and not stub the toe, or run into the light switch in the wall because you were too close to the wall? That's a personal thing.
She's saying that and I'm like, oh, okay. And you have those situations, but then I think we also have the situations of, like, when you're going to a bigger event, or when you're going on a vacation with a bunch of people, or when you're going somewhere and maybe it's around people you haven't seen in a while. Or just in certain situations where I feel like sometimes, like in my situations, it's comparing myself to other people. That tends to be where my brain turns inward on myself, and I do what I lovingly call self-sabotage. And I'm often just ripping myself to shreds. And then it turns into a spiral. And I think sometimes that's what happens when our brain turns on us too, is we start with one statement and then it's, okay, so now I'm going to kick you when you're down and we're just going to spiral and we're going to start picking you apart. And then next thing you know, you're just sitting there and you're like, well, I'm just a really big piece of crap. Like,
and then it can even spiral so much to, and I see this a lot with, like, rejection sensitive dysphoria, especially we see it in a little bit more of the neurodivergence, but everybody can experience it. It's just more widely known in the ADHD world. And you could remember, like, when you were in 7th grade, you raised your hand for an answer and you were so confident that the answer was this and you said it and then it was wrong and you're like, oh my God. Like, it can go all the way back to any sort of moment where you felt like that.
Oh, I think any of us can. Like, I can sit here and recall things that I did in high school, in middle school, and still feel that level.
That secondary.
That level of embarrassment, that level of insecurity, which I'm almost 40 years old. And I'm over here like, dude, you have your life together. Like, you have your life together, and you are still feeling that level of hurt, that level of embarrassment, that level of insecurity. And that's just asinine to me. Like, that my brain can go right back to that spot of 15-year-old Caitlin, you know.
But that's how the brain maps all of that, is that is an entire map, that is an entire reverie of that particular emotion that you've experienced throughout your lifeline. And we utilize that in EMDR a little bit, where we pick something, we go back, when did you feel this last, and things like that. It's a little bit more complex, but the gist of it is that. But your brain categorizes those memories and those experiences with those emotions. And when you feel that again, sometimes the brain is a jerk and it likes to bring all of it to the forefront.
Well, it's just like trauma. Like, we talk about the body keeping score. It's just like that. You know, when you have a trauma trigger or whatever, or a specific time of year, your brain kicks into high gear and is like, yep, we remember this. Here's how we respond. Or, yep, we remember this. Here's how the body feels. And it's interesting, because I think one of the things we teach in therapy is, how do we rewire the brain? How do we work the brain to be more conducive, to be more positive? I don't want to say positive, but flexible, learning new ways to address that thought. With the understanding that, like, we're not exactly trying to change everything, because you can't change trauma. You can't change the past. You can't change the things that have happened. You have to sit in it. You have to deal with it, which sitting in the uncomfortable is my least favorite thing in the entire world. But you deal with it. But I think the interesting part is that even when we rewire those things, your brain is still going to be a jerk. Like, the brain has a mind of its own.
I say a lot that the brain can sometimes be very beautifully stupid. Like, it can make this is an organ. I'm pretty sure it's an organ.
It is an organ.
Yeah, okay. That we know very little about. We're learning a lot more about it. We're learning how it works, how it's all interconnected, the different pieces of the brain and what they're responsible for. But some of it is still like, well, we think. Well, we're pretty sure. We're still looking to make sure that this is exactly the hypothesis that we have came up with.
It's not like you can study the brain of a live person.
It's hard. It's hard. We don't have the technology quite yet we have made leaps and bounds in the last, probably 20, 50 years, by all means. And we have more sensitive instruments. We have better data. We have a better understanding because of what we're able to see in live time and in vivo when you're using these instruments and these scans. But there's still the unknown, an unknown variable or an uncontrolled variable when you're thinking about experiments of the person and how their unique makeup and their unique brain organization completely can throw this off course because of their unique experiences, their unique makeup, their genetics, their experiences, all of it.
It's the one part of the body. You bring that up. It's the one part of the body that is so incredibly different. When you think about MRIs, you think about different things. Like, we think about MRIs, different parts of the brain light up. When
PET scans,
when different things happen. When we're talking about seizures, you're talking about trauma, you're talking about just migraines, you're talking about anything, different parts of the brain light up. My brain's going to light up differently than Kaylee's brain is going to light up under those kind of scans. But you're talking about, I'm going to preface this because there are people in my life that do not have quote unquote normal hearts. When you're looking at a human heart, most human hearts are anatomically look the same.
Yes.
Have the same structure. So they don't light up different. They don't, they look the same. And so you don't expect differences unless you're dealing with
those who have the differences.
But the brain is honestly, it's an ever-changing thing, because what we know is your cortexes, they develop at different ages.
And that's new research.
That's newer research. One of the things that we know, and they used to say this, and I love talking about it with my clients actually, is the prefrontal cortex. We know this part of your brain is the last part to develop. Kaylee and I both work with teenagers. Fun. the amygdala, we call her Amy the amygdala.
Mm-hmm.
Amy the amygdala is in charge of teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
She's the impulse center. She's the pleasure center. She's the do it if it feels good center. And that would explain why teenagers are the way they are in a lot of ways. So parents, understand that.
It's still developing, yes.
It's still developing.
Mm-hmm.
But this prefrontal cortex, everybody used to think would develop in the 20s. Well, new research is suggesting that the prefrontal cortex is actually not fully developed until you're hitting your 30s.
25 is kind of the median right now.
Well, it's changing.
Average.
It's
Yeah,
changing
it's
to be late 20s, early 30s is what they're now suggesting.
And we will preface the research that is done in this are on what otherwise healthy brains.
Yeah. Do any of us have healthy brains?
Well, okay. When I say like there's no medical condition that that could be exacerbating the problem, I think they try to rule out for substance use history and stuff like that. So I mean, I think that that's what that research is utilizing, and they have kind of dealt with some of those variables.
Okay. So we've kind of gone off track here a little bit, but the point being that the brain is an ever-changing organ. And the brain, honestly, is the part of the body, and people, I think, tend to forget this too. We all talk about the heart as kind of like the center. The heart is what keeps us going. Mm-hmm. But the brain is what sends messages to your heart. The brain is your message center. The brain is, when you think about a computer, the brain is your motherboard. Mm-hmm. The brain is where all the programming is, where it tells everything to do what it's supposed to do.
I'm so proud of you for knowing that.
My dad's a computer programmer.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I grew up around computers. I do have some knowledge. Okay.
It was just very oddly specific.
I have more knowledge than you tend to think. I just don't always discuss it or use it. But the point being that our brain is technically probably the part of the body that has the most control.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's terrifying.
It has all the control.
That's terrifying when you think about it. I mean, it has all the control, but it's actually terrifying when you think about it, because that sucker can be a jerk. Mm-hmm. And so
it can be very mean.
So what do you do? What do you do when you start to spiral? And I say that not as, hey, what do you do when you start to spiral? Here, let us tell you what to do. I say that as somebody who spirals quite often.
Who experiences it.
Who, self-disclosure here, my own therapist, because yes, therapists see therapists, because we need to, not because of the things that we necessarily hear, but because, hey, guess what? We got problems too. Talk about that our brains often try to protect us. Our anxiety, the things that we deal with, try to protect us. And sometimes our brains do a real crappy job and think that they are protecting us, when in reality, it can actually harm us. And not in a scary way, but in a like, hey, we think we're doing a good job in taking care of you because we're prepping you for the worst thing that could be happening. Yeah. And this is where we have to start rewiring, which is, hey, I appreciate what you're doing. I see that you're trying to protect me, but you're actually harming me. And I don't want to focus on, like, I don't want my life to always be prepared for the next worst thing. Like, I don't want that to always be the thing. I don't always want to be self-doubting. I don't always want to be tearing myself down and being like, well, I'm going to suck at this. So I'm just going to prepare to be sucking at this. And if I don't, hey, what a pleasant surprise. Like, that's not how you want to live life.
No. Because that's not really setting yourself up for success either.
No.
But the brain is a creature of habit. Because it does tend to do what you have habituated it to. It likes pattern. It likes known things. It does not like unknown things. And so in this scenario, the unknown thing is the rewiring and the trying something new in this situation. I utilize the example of like a rut in a gravel road. Once a rut has been formed, water is naturally just going to keep going there because that's the path of least resistance. It's already carved out a way. You can't just put gravel in the rut and hope that it's going to go away. It's still going to find its way. It's still going to go, which is fine. You can use so in this example, the coping skills are the gravel. They can help maybe stop it, but it's not going to completely rewire it. It's that completely looking at filling it in, diverting the water to something that is more helpful or moving it to somewhere where it's less damaging so that it can actually be beneficial and is no longer, making the road unsafe. And so when we're thinking about it with our own brain, yes, we have these highways or ruts or whatever you want to call the path of least resistance in our brains, because that's what's been wired. What wires together, or what fires together wires together. And so we have to be able to use the plasticity in our brain and find different ways to wire different neurons together. There's a whole pruning theory. We won't go into that. But when we're thinking about what we can do when our brain continues to just be mean to us, is finding the things that help us break out and notice when the rut is being utilized. Like when we're in the rut, what can we do in that moment to divert? What can we do to help self-soothe? I know that I've talked about it a lot of times, that sometimes when my brain is mean to me, sometimes I just call it out and just say, wow, my brain's being super mean to me right now. And it's kind of in the same vein of like when you're feeling an emotion, identifying the emotion can take away some of its power over you, but it can also help validate that it is okay to feel this emotion. We still have responsibility of what we do with that emotion, but it is valid to feel the emotion. And that's something that has helped me help myself with, nope, this is a not helpful thought process that I'm experiencing right now. I have decided to, my brain is being mean to me. So what can I do that's different? Sometimes it's that radical acceptance. Sometimes it's just like, well, it can go up from here.
Well, and you bring up a good point. Like that's, saying like my brain's being really mean to me right now kind of goes along with what I'm saying. My thing is, hey, I know you're trying to help me, but you're actually hurting me right now.
Mm-hmm.
You're not being friendly. And so then you're kind of calling your brain out.
Yes.
You're putting your brain on notice. And yeah. And you're just being like, hey, like, I know you're a part of me. I know you think what you're doing is helpful. Because honestly, like we're talking about our brains like they're a separate entity, but that's kind of essentially what we're doing here. At the end of the day, the brain is not trying to harm you.
No.
Your brain is not like this part of you that's just like, hey, let's totally like go in mutiny against Kaylee or go in mutiny against Caitlin and let's destroy the thing that we inhabit. Like that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is half the time, or not half the time, but all of the time, what our brain is doing is what we've taught our brain to do. Mm-hmm. Or how our brain is responding to whatever stressors we've gone through in life, whatever traumas, whatever situations we've gone through. And so the brain has learned in that situation, okay, this happened, so this is how we respond. Mm-hmm. Like Kaylee said, the brain is a creature of habit. And so if you've been bullied, if you growing up when you were insecure, your thought was, now I talk down to myself. Okay, so even as an adult feeling insecure, you talk down to yourself. That's what your brain automatically jumps to. And so what we're doing now is learning, okay, I recognize what you're doing. I recognize that you're talking down to yourself. We don't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. That's not something we want to continue to do. So now we need to teach ourselves, teach our brains. And there's several different ways to do that. One of the things I do with my clients, one of the things I do with myself is coining new thoughts, putting your thoughts on trial. Mm-hmm. And it's a very humbling experience when I did it this week with a client, coining new thoughts. You start writing these negative thoughts that you have about yourself. And then on the opposite side, and it's like, you could be like, oh, I'm just going to write the very opposite thought. No, like you actually put thought into it. It was a very humbling experience to sit there and be like, ooh, like I have some really yucky thoughts. But then to reframe them, because that's essentially what you're doing. Mm-hmm. You're reframing your thoughts. Yeah. Does make you look at, okay, I can do this. I can teach my brain to do something different, because that's the thing about the brain. It can be rewired. Yes. I talk about this experience. My son, when he was premature, this is what I will disclose, was premature and had an MRI scan when he was an infant. Okay, we'll just do that. Okay. Premature. Okay. We had a little bit of a technical issue that caused our video to pause for a second. So we're just going to kind of pick up where we left off. Yep. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we were talking about is how the brain can create new pathways. And so I will actually share an experience, a personal experience. So my son was born premature, and premature babies are often born with differences in their brains, not necessarily bad differences. It just shows up in their brains that they were born premature. And in my son's case, there were like white spots on the brain. Not that those are of big significance, but that was just what was there. And I remember them doing an MRI. And as a mom, when you're told that your child is born and there's these different spots on the brain, that's kind of scary.
Yeah.
But I also remember being told that the brain, from the neurologist, that the brain creates different pathways around those spots, and essentially, like, can't find the word, makes up for.
Okay. Accommodates
For whatever was happening in those spots. And that gave me hope. And so my son is now the age that he is, and you would have no idea that he was, premature. I mean, you know our story, then you would. But anyway, point being, the brain is a part of the body that regenerates, that we know that when there's trauma to the brain, there's things like that. The brain can create new pathways, can regenerate, can do all of these things. And so what we've been talking about, what we wanted to talk about, is that there's hope.
Yes.
That there's hope for your brain to learn new things, not just in the physical pathways, but in what we can teach our brains.
The plasticity piece of it. So, and I think I like that piece of it. I really do, because it makes you understand that you don't have to be stuck there. You don't have to be stuck in that moment. You don't have to be stuck in that thought process, especially like with shame spirals and things like that. Those can get really nasty really quickly. And the self-criticalness, the sometimes sabotage, just the overall negativity that those shame spirals can produce is overwhelming at times. And so when we think about plasticity and that hope and rewiring to help our brain not be as negative to us and be so mean to us, that's hopeful. That's just, it's a good feeling that I don't have to be stuck here. But when those thoughts do get deep and they do get overwhelming, and maybe they're just not manageable at that point in time, that's when we reach out to our medical professionals, our medical support systems. That's when we reach out to our mental health providers. That's when we reach out to our people at our table, our support system, and help find ways to get outside of our head, because it can be helpful to have a third party, non-biased individual just maybe see things in a different way, that because you're in the muck of it, you're in the middle of it, it's hard to see any other opportunities, any other possibilities other than what the brain has zeroed in on. And that's why it's important to get it outside of our brains. It's important to get it out. And those supportive people in your life can be that sounding board, like you've said. It's definitely helpful to, it's not going to rewire right away. It's not something that, oh yes, if I do it this one time and I've been exposed to this one pivot or this one coining difference, that it's going to be completely changed. It takes time.
No, it takes practice.
It takes practice. It took time to get there. It's going to take time to get somewhere else.
I mean, it's going to take repetition. We talk about that with coping skills. I think sometimes people, and I'm guilty of this too, we expect instant gratification of, if I make this change once, then it's going to be easy and it's going to be something that is just permanent from here on out. Well, no, it's not. You trained your brain for so long, even unknowingly, to respond a specific way. So now you have to retrain your brain, which means you have to consistently put into practice that retraining before it becomes a habit. They say 21 days to make a habit. I don't know that it's necessarily going to take 21 days, because if you're doing it multiple times throughout the day,
well, that
it can become pretty quick.
the brains that don't do habits well, and I'm speaking specifically on ADHD brains here, habits just do not do well with the ADHD brain.
Well, they don't. I mean, that's a pretty generalized statement, what I said, the 21 days, because
Mhm.
they don't take into consideration people who are neurodivergent,
Mhm.
aka both of us. People with anxiety, you're neurodivergent. Just
Mhm.
welcome.
Neurodivergence is a larger coin of a term that encompasses brain differences.
Yes, and so that could be a whole different other podcast.
Yes, we won't even go on that
Neurodivergent,
one.
everybody used to throw under that just autism, and then
ADHD
it was
and autism, yeah.
ADHD, and now it's like neurodivergent just basically means your brain's different.
Mhm.
Your brain processes different. Essentially, is what it is. Your brain processes things differently. It views things differently. Kind of, it's a whole thing. Not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing.
Mm-mm.
Getting off topic, but the point being that your brain is not the enemy, and I think sometimes it's painted that way, even when we have what Kaylee lovingly calls bad brain days.
Mhm.
It can be your own worst enemy, but that's not the role it's taking.
Mhm.
It's not like the brain is placed in our body and it's like, okay, here's your evil villain, like the evil villain that overtakes your body. It's not like that. It's that the brain over time has been trained to respond a different way, and so now we have to teach it a different way. But at the end of the day, what we want you to walk away with, what we want our clients to walk away with, what we want to walk away with is hope.
Yes.
Hope that things can get better. And one thing I want to touch on, and Kaylee and I've both talked about this, I want to touch on, is that, the point of this podcast, the point of us talking about things like this and sharing our experiences, is that we just happen to be two people doing this who are therapists. This is real world stuff for us too. This is stuff that we deal with. This isn't like, hey, we're just talking to you and educating you. No, this is us sharing our personal things that we deal with, because we're people. We deal with the things that a lot of our clients deal with. We deal with the things that a lot of you deal with. We just happen to be two people who went to school to get trained to help people deal with those things. But our brains are not nice to us either.
I've said that and will continue to say that.
Yes, and we've dealt with our fair share of trauma, and I shouldn't say fair share because I don't think anybody gets a fair share. I think it's
a misnomer.
Yeah. Point being, this is authentic chaos. And it's hope for us. We just want to pass that on to you. So today's episode was a little chaotic, a little like off kilter, a little all over the place, but that kind of lets you know where the brain's at.
Ping pongs everywhere.
Yeah.
Sometimes. So, but we want you guys to have a fantastic Friday, and we'll see you next time.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.